We will be recording today's session, so if you have other folks in your networks who want to learn more about how to partner with communities around forestry priorities, especially around this grant opportunity, we encourage you to share this link. We'll be doing a lot of sharing in the next weeks. Get the recording? Yeah. Awesome. So my name is Molly Cotting. I use she, her pronouns, and I work for the DNR's Urban and Community Forestry Program as our Environmental Justice Coordinator. My colleague Maddie will be assisting me today with some of our Q&A and chat functions. And we are so grateful on a Monday morning at 9 a.m. that you're here with us. We're going to be talking about engaging environmental justice communities around their urban and community forestry initiatives. This topic is pressing and timely. Our urban forests are experiencing numerous threats to their health, including climate change, pressures from development, and invasive pests and diseases. These are devastating to canopies across the state and the impacts of urban heat island effects. These result in vulnerability to flooding and drought, and a lack of access to all the benefits that trees provide, including cooling ability, economic savings, property value, health and wellness of communities, and pollution mitigation. And these will be felt most strongly by environmental justice communities. We did just kind of want to do some housekeeping on accessibility and the use of WebEx today. So there is a closed captioning that is available for this meeting. You can turn that on by pressing the closed captioning or CC button on the lower left of your WebEx browser or application. WebEx does have limited support for low vision accessibility that works across versions. So you can use a high contrast scheme or zoom in on our call. Transcription will be available with this meeting. It will be uploaded to our DNR UCF website, and we'll give some more links later today. And lastly, we will be using the chat and Q&A functions today. Please feel free to drop your questions in at any time into the Q&A. This is located on the bottom right corner. You can click on that to reveal that function, and Maddie's going to be so kind to manage those for me today. So let's go over just a brief outline of today's agenda. We do want to cover a lot of ground in this hour with you. We're briefly going to introduce this training, the concept of environmental justice, and our organization's commitment to center community in our environmental justice work. Then we'll go over an upcoming funding opportunity that will require engagement with community members for local units of government and larger nonprofits to access. It's called Centering Community and Canopy Solutions, and we'll tell you a little bit more about that. Next, we'll go over the need for community engagement with communities who've been historically underserved and transition to practical supports for your organization to step up and partner with impacted communities. We've left some time for questions, and we hope to wrap up by 10 a.m. So first, let's go over why we're offering this webinar. Our intent is to increase awareness of the need to improve canopy access and canopy equity access actually across the state, and ensure benefits of available resources are centered in community priorities. We're hosting this webinar to increase awareness also about this upcoming funding opportunity. It's intended to improve canopy equity in the state and ensure the benefits of all these available resources are centered in community priorities. For community-based organizations, we hope this will provide insight into the grant application process and how local units of government and larger nonprofits will be asked to partner with community groups for project proposals. And for local units of government, whether you're from a city, a regional authority, park board, or tribal government, or a larger nonprofit, we hope this will be a useful session that kind of outlines some of the practical ways to get acquainted with environmental justice communities near you, or deepen your relationships through this funding opportunity. You may be new to the concept of canopy equity and environmental justice. We don't want to make any assumptions, but just to kind of lay the framework or the groundwork. Environmental justice refers to the fair treatment and meaningful involvement of all communities, regardless of race, income, color, national origin, tribal affiliation, or disability, in activities that affect human health and the environment. And this definition comes from the United States Environmental Protection Agency. But I really appreciate the words of community organizer Marjorie Carter, who really plainly puts it as no community should be saddled with more environmental burdens and less environmental benefits than any other. Environmental justice communities really can be defined by a number of factors and experiences, but generally it refers to historically marginalized communities who are disproportionately affected by pollution, climate change, or other environmental harms. In terms of the urban and community forestry application of environmental justice, Canopy Equity ensures that tree-related benefits are reaching all community members while reducing some of the systemic barriers to trees, tree care, and tree-related careers. In the United States, low-income communities and Black, Indigenous, and other communities of color experience systemic increased risk of exposure to air pollution, urban heat island effects, and other environmental harms. Additionally, equitable delivery of urban and community forestry services and opportunities can benefit environmental justice community members economically, whether that's support for the cost of tree care, helping them to decrease energy use, and providing access to green jobs in arboriculture or forestry fields. So the DNR and our urban and community forestry program prioritizes environmental justice through the meaningful involvement and engagement of underserved communities who've experienced those harms of systemic racism, underinvestment, and disenfranchisement. Our environmental justice efforts aim to provide equitable, accessible, and responsive resources for the priorities named by impacted communities and the organizations that manage their urban and community forests. DNR is committed to learning and undoing systems of harm in partnership with communities. So later this fall, actually, we just got a release date, confirmation of September 9th. The Minnesota DNR will be distributing funding through the U.S. Forest Service and the Inflation Reduction Act to qualifying census tracts and priority communities across the state. This grant is titled Centering Communities and Canopy Solutions. It is intended to build capacity for environmental justice communities to participate in projects while also increasing their benefits from a variety of community forestry projects and initiatives. Centering Communities will competitively award $1 million in funding for these activities, including community outreach, education, I'm getting ahead of myself, tree planting and maintenance, supporting low-income residents with tree removals and replacements, forest management planning, and community workforce opportunities related to caring for neighborhood trees. We will be releasing this funding on September 9th, as I mentioned. So who will be eligible? This funding opportunity will be open to eligible community-based organizations or local units of government and larger nonprofits, so long as they are named as partners with community members. We are encouraging larger organizations and public institutions to take advantage of this opportunity to build community-centered proposals that provide cooperative learning, community employment, and canopy equity solutions alongside environmental justice communities. Eligible activities for this grant include community forestry outreach and education, tree planting and maintenance, support for low-income residents, as I've already mentioned, and then forest management planning and those community workforce opportunities. But why is community engagement critical for centering communities? Environmental justice communities have provided DNR feedback about this funding opportunity and expressed the need for engagement between larger capacity organizations and those community-based ones to tackle canopy priorities. While we know that many community groups hold eligible status as nonprofit organizations, there are others that will need the support of larger organizations and departments to access funding. Others lack nonprofit status and won't be eligible to apply because of those federal rules and will need a partner. Additionally, some environmental justice groups lack the capacity to administer grant funding or conduct aspects of work, but they would still benefit from the opportunities outlined in the upcoming request for applications. So in both instances, really local units of government and larger NGOs can serve as a critical role in program success. Awardees of centering communities will be able to access much needed resources for community forest management, but we're also hoping that will help build meaningful relationships with groups who've historically experienced harm around land use programming and public disinvestment. Community connections are really vital for sustainable investment in urban and community forestry as a whole. And we do think that environmental justice priorities are just going to continue to be more prominently prioritized in spending. Speaking with forest management organizations, there's really a spectrum of experience and comfort conducting public engagement or having the capacity, honestly, for more meaningfully involving communities in some of the urban and community forestry programs that are being run. So this funding opportunity can really add to your organizational capacity to engage communities and provide the opportunities for organizations to think differently about how they develop, implement, and sustain community-centered projects. We here at the DNR recognize that organizations who are not currently engaging environmental justice communities really need support preparing applications for this grant program. So it's our hope that this program provides a springboard for increased knowledge and resources and interest in urban and community forestry needs for public and private investment and for professional development. This training is going to present a number of tools today for community engagement. It will also provide actionable steps to co-develop project proposals and share resources with you all for deeper learning. So first, let's go over some of these practical tools, starting with how do you get to know folks who are impacted by environmental injustice in your community. This section is really all about understanding where work is eligible, where you can find groups to partner with if you don't already have relationships with community groups. And we'll also talk about a strengths-based model for determining what type of project will be best suited for your community partners and help to keep that in mind as you move into engagement. So let's see. First, how do you determine which areas of your community are eligible to access this funding? DNR has developed maps to summarize all of the federally recognized environmental justice neighborhoods in the state of Minnesota. These maps, which are available on our website, and maybe this might be a good time, sorry, I'm throwing you a curveball to drop the grant page, is really useful for this IRA funded program, which has strict guidelines about how you determine which neighborhoods are eligible. They pull from national tools like the Climate and Economic Justice Screening Tool and the EJ Screen. These were developed by federal agencies to identify census tracts that contain tribal lands, increased density of low-income households, or experiences of pollution exposure, for example. So you can find more information on our website. You can just type in your city or county and get a more comprehensive overview of which areas are eligible near you. But as you can see, there are a lot of counties that qualify and a lot outside of the metro area. All that to say that many people will be eligible for this funding. Okay, so the next kind of like tool that we're encouraging folks to kind of pull into their arsenal are to get social. Maybe you're already connected with other social organizations and departments within your city that engage community members within your, and could help you do the same within your own department. We ask you to kind of think about where you've conducted tree outreach. If you're already involved with others, you know, in the tree network, you could also consider social organizations like neighborhood associations, different affinity groups in your community, public health or human service organizations. But we don't want you to forget about asking those existing networks for their knowledge of community groups to add to your UCF table. We're talking about your tree advisory boards and other city and regional departments. Here are a few additional ideas to support your efforts to connect with community-based organizations. The first, pretty straightforward, just to attend community events. We also know of other urban forest managers who host open office hours, making sure that it's accessible. And then asking those networks for warm introductions. With an influx of funding, some environmental justice communities are overwhelmed with larger entities approaching them for partnership opportunities. If you can vet yourself through a warm introduction, just making sure that you have their vote of confidence, I think that will go a long way. And third, be transparent about why you're reaching out, what communities can expect from working with you, and sharing your hopes and plans to build community valued partnerships. You're more likely to get off on the right foot and build trust with communities through this process. We did want to kind of be a little bit more interactive this morning. I think we've got about 10 guests. So we're going to drop a poll we hope that you'll fill it out. This is kind of an open-ended question, but what are some of the most effective ways your department or organization has found to engage communities around forest priorities? So that'll go live, and we just invite you to drop some of the ways that your organization is finding a lot of traction with community engagement. In the Twin Cities region, as you guys are filling this out, I just thought I'd give one example of a network that's kind of building or being more aware of each other. The U.S. Forest Service has a Northern Research Station at the University of Minnesota, and they're working to develop a stewardship map that kind of provides a geospatial view of what groups are working to improve canopy. Surveys were sent to a number of groups and government departments in 2023 and 2024, which sought information about the priorities to reach individual groups. Now, this information won't be published until early 2025, but initial findings suggest that there are a lot of informal or intersectional groups that are really interested in the condition of their urban and community forests. We're starting to get some responses in. Do you want to share with the group, Maddie?
Yes, we have education events and classroom setting sessions so far. Still have that poll open for a few more minutes.
Great, and as we're waiting for more responses, maybe I'll also just share, I've been here with the agency since 2022. When I arrived, we surveyed urban forest management organizations about where they're investing in community outreach. And I know I've shared some of this information at other continuing ed workshops, but some of the most valuable engagement strategies that were offered by those folks were to host those open coffee hours at a coffee shop in town to make sure that they offered engagement that provided childcare or considered evening hours for folks who are working during the day, and to meet communities where they're already gathering, whether it's cultural celebrations or community centers. We just invite you to think creatively and intersectionally, how you can get outside of the box of your stewardship networks to include maybe community artists, advocates, or more broad restoration efforts. These are great ways to find new partners in community forestry work. Any other responses?
I think I can't see them.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, someone's fighting there, but yeah, we just welcome your own ideas here. We don't mean to be prescriptive, but I think what we're finding is what I'm finding in my own work is the more that I just show up where community is, the more I'm welcomed into deeper conversations about what we can accomplish together.
Mm-hmm. Close that.
Sure. Oh, I have to.
I can close that.
Okay. We'll share some of this information out too with folks who are attending today. There's our poll. I'm doing a really great job, guys, of navigating us through this. So next, talking about still talking about who we could work with. Please know that the DNR is also here to support you with those interjections and networking. This webinar is one opportunity to share your interest and capacity. So we did want to invite folks, if you want to use the chat, and we're hoping that there's kind of a representative sample of community-based organizations and folks from some of the named partner kind of groups. But if you want to share your contact information here with other attendees, if you'd like to get connected, please include things like your email address, maybe the name of your organization, and the ways that you're already thinking you'd like to partner with urban forest management organizations. And then if you're attending as a unit of government, maybe just share where you work, your email, and how you're thinking about partnering with UCF projects. We did send this invite out widely, and so we're hoping to share out that information, that updated list, as we get more folks that sign up with interest, to maintain that and then share it out for groups that are requesting support to apply. So if that's you, if that sounds like something you're interested, please also share, in the chat, is that, if you'd like to be included in those future emails. You can also email us. Our email address is ucf state.dnr@state.mn.us. And if you feel more comfortable that way, just letting us know whether you'd like to be included in that mailer, that'd be great. Okay. Let's see this next slide. So if you really are having a hard time thinking about who to connect with, one strategy that is really informed by principles of public health that I think is helpful to look at is asset-based mapping or asset-based community development models. I want to invite you guys to maybe show of hands. Has anybody heard about this model before? Is it totally new to you? Seeing a whole lot of activity. So hopefully this is, yeah. Oh, good. That's great. Yeah, so maybe for some folks it's brand new and others are already sort of versed in using this strengths-based approach. But really the ABCD model builds on the assets that are already found in the community. This is a community organizing tool that was developed by researchers John McKnight and John Kretzman. We're going to provide some more links later for more learning, but basically it builds on the assets that are already found in your community. This model mobilizes individuals, associations, and institutions to come together to build on those strengths. Some basic steps involved in developing your own ABCD model is to spend time identifying those strengths of those members in your communities, whether they be individuals, those associations, and then more formal institutions. Secondly, you want to mobilize these folks to work together to build onto everyone else's assets with their own resources. And then matching assets from those individuals with people and groups that have interest or needs with that strength. So some considerations to keep in mind, but we invite you to dig deeper into this framework to better understand how to begin using it to become more community-centered, more strength-centered, more recognitional with your approaches, right? Is that everybody has gifts to share. People can contribute and want to contribute, but we really need to work a little bit to discover those gifts if we're not already networked with community members. Relationships build a community. I think that we're recognizing this more and more in a world that demands more with more pressing problems and sometimes less resources to address them. An intentional effort to build and nourish relationships is really core to this model and community building. If you place residents at the center, it's really essential to engage the wider community, not just as actors, but really, the recipients of your services and the co-developers of these assets together in community. Leaders often involve others as active members of the community, whether they be from voluntary organizations, faith-based communities, neighborhoods, local businesses. Folks can really engage others across sectors, but this following is really based on trust and influence and relationship, and so it's a much more intentional way to go about partnering. Let's see. I think that's maybe enough on that one. So once you've made initial introductions, and even if you've been aware of each other's work before, it's really important for local units of government and larger institutions to respond to a couple of questions about the level of engagement or involvement communities are seeking, right? How do communities want to be engaged? One way that you can go about doing this is to conduct an assessment for your organization and their capacity. So we're going to drop a link in the chat. This one comes from the EPA. It's a public participation guide. I think the name of the resource is a situation assessment, but it's really important before you go out into community is to really evaluate what is our person power, right? What are kind of the frameworks that our organization has for engagement to kind of inform how you go to communities about your capacity to engage. The second, and these really are, the graphic on the right is about this levels of public participation. This comes from the International Association of Public Participation. This is another way to think about a spectrum of engagement. Oftentimes we talk with urban forest managers who do more of the informing, telling folks about a project that's happening, maybe towards the consultation step where you're maybe asking folks for the type of species that they want planted in their boulevard, or involvement if it's a park planning process. The kind of funding that we're providing, we're hoping is going to move folks along this spectrum more to involving community members, collaborating with them or empowering them to take up some of these community forestry activities, or to be inspired to get involved in community forestry careers. So I think Maddie did a really good job of sharing those. I'm kind of, that's all over the place. Okay. And lastly, if we think about practical tools that support engagement, I really wanted to talk about values that should accompany anything that you do. The first, again, is to be transparent about what you can accomplish, what will be difficult or impossible, how engagement will be used, and what your limitations are. Second, to be flexible, hosting those open hours, being available evening and weekends, embracing just bigger tables and sharing power. I think oftentimes, community forest management organizations are also coming from the reality of being under-resourced or having limited capacity. And so they don't always think about themselves as sharing power over decisions, but this really is something that a lot of community members are really curious and excited to be able to be involved in the decisions that impact them, for the next few decades into the future. Third is to embrace imperfection. This is like part of my daily mantra as a recovering perfectionist, but don't let fear hold you back from reaching out, from trying new approaches and sharing what you don't know with groups as you develop partnerships. I think that vulnerability and humility goes a long way towards forging new relationships with folks who maybe have had negative experiences with government and land planning before. This is a great way to just model people just putting relationships ahead of outcome. And then fourth, to center accessibility and flexibility, we want to think about what will people have to sacrifice in order to participate, and how can we support their participation, right? Go back to that actually. There's more to be said here. Thinking about language accessibility and translations that are available to your organization. Are there different modes of communication that are valued by community members that are being used by your organization? Is there a way to increase accessibility? And then thinking about different options to participate, whether it's filling out a survey or attending a listening session, or perhaps being invited to be on a task force or a planning committee. So there's lots of different ways that people can participate. And I'm sure that folks will find a varying level of interest in being able to do those things. Okay, so we're coming back to this kind of main slide. Remembering that the levels of public participation graphic, those next 3 slides that we're going to cover contain information on engaging communities. And we've added some great ideas for getting started on partnership proposals for this funding. We really want to thank the University of Wisconsin-Madison Extension. They presented these resources at a recent Wisconsin DNR webinar. You can also find some of these resources at our, we hosted a MNSTAC forum. MNSTAC, if you're not familiar, stands for the Minnesota Shade Tree Advisory Committee. We had a forum on public engagement last summer. So we're going to be sharing those websites with you if you want to dig more into these resources. But we're thinking about how to collaborate with communities, how to empower communities on these next slides. So the first relates to collaboration strategies. If you've got a Canopy equity issue that you want to tackle, thinking about, and I already mentioned it, forming a task force or a planning committee, making sure that our representation is diverse, that it reflects different age groups, different resident communities, even businesses and nonprofits. The second is thinking about, could we do a community-led maintenance team? This is something I've heard brought up at park planning engagement meetings that I've attended, but community members understand the value in caring for our green space, both for how well a community kind of accepts or adopts those improvements in spaces, and also for prioritization of more sustainable funding, right? To continue to improve our green spaces. So a considered approach values their time and energy supporting these activities. It's not just asking for volunteer crews, but you can budget compensation. That's definitely allowable under this funding, and we think it would go a long way to getting more folks involved. The third is to write up partnership agreements. We regularly use memorandums of understanding or even consider more formalized structures between different entities. If you're going in hoping to conduct research, provide outreach and education, or perform work, just communicating about the project, making sure that everyone has shared values and that those are being reflected in the work that's done, how it's used, and who benefits. This has been a really great tool for nurturing trust for us amongst new relationships. This next list is a strategy that relates to empowering or sharing power with community members in making decisions. Some ways that you can level up your engagement in urban and community forestry programming. This is an invitation to kind of add to what you're already doing. Maybe this is something that you're already involved in community in some aspect, but how can we kind of move you further along in that spectrum? So the first is to support community-led planting events where the residents take the lead. Not just on the tree selection, but maybe coordinating the planting event or organizing that maintenance. Maybe also teaching residents how to evaluate their own spaces where they want trees and have them selected, for appropriateness based on their evaluation. I think that's sharing knowledge and power. Some of our, qualifications, background, and experience are really valuable, not necessarily skills that the general public has at their disposal. Third is to develop a community-led grant program that provides financial assistance to residents who need help with stump removal, planting, or maintenance costs. We had this available with some of our state allocated funding from the legislature, but here's another opportunity to take advantage of funding that can go towards those activities. And that's some of the most pressing feedback we've received from environmental justice communities over the last year is some of those bills can be really debilitating. And then partnership agreements with organizations who conduct outreach, education, tree planting, and documenting the project. And that kind of speaks to some of the tools I already gave around memorandums of understanding, but these were offered from UW-Madison. All right, and then involving communities along the life of forestry projects. This is another way to foster more sustainable, deeper, meaningful relationships and build trust for the long haul. If your environmental justice community is interested in more sustained engagement, here are some practical ways to include them in the planning stages, implementation, even evaluating the projects that have kind of rolled out. You can put that in your proposal. So first is to survey the community about the direction of a project. You could also include community guidance about the design or implementation of the project. Hiring community members throughout the project, again, is allowable under this funding. And then including an evaluation stage in your project timeline that involves community members. We think this will really be a tool for advocacy when you go back or have to justify budgets to really be able to point back to this is what community really valued, this is what they want to see more, or this is what is still maybe lacking in the resources that we have more sustainably in place. And the last kind of resource that we wanted to give to you or a lump of resources is just sharing more for deeper learning. So apologies for this long list, but there are links included in this. They're kind of embedded, and our hope is to provide all of these for you. I think it's too many for you to share, but if you want to, whatever you think. Okay, so the first is an environmental justice training. The Alliance for Community Trees is kind of a subsect of the Arbor Day Foundation, and Dr. Christine Carmichael, has put together kind of like it's about an hour-long environmental justice primer that you can watch on YouTube for you and other members of your department who might just kind of want to get a more foundational understanding of what environmental justice is and how it relates to your career. The second is a Vibrant Cities Lab resource. This is kind of like a toolkit that's prepackaged, really slick, that you can look at for building into your community forestry practice. The third resource from the University of Wisconsin-Madison, those are those community engagement tools. You'll find everything from published research papers to presentations like ours back in June of 2023 in there, but it's just kind of like a whole wheelhouse or suite of resources there. The fourth, cooperative ownership of ecosystem management. This is a paper that was published on like cooperative commons philosophy. You might remember if you've gotten resources from MinStack or the DNR before. I presented at the 2023 Morton Urban Forestry Forum. They did a number of trainings or webinars on community forestry. They did one just focused on justice, and my community partner from a Johnny Collective talked about what does it mean to view all of our social and public goods as really like shared assets that community members are part owners in and really want to be very involved in the decisions that impact them. Really, really great resource if you have the time to watch that. It's about a 45-minute presentation. Fifth, we have an asset mapping exercise. So this kind of goes back to that ABCD model. If you wanted to take a look at that more in depth, that's from DePaul University, created by John McKnight and Jody Kretzman. And last is the tiers model of public engagement. This is another way to look at public engagement from a variety of different aspects and think about what might work best for your organization. So we're sitting at about 9:40, which is great. I wanted to leave a lot of time for you and open it up to you really for questions that you've had throughout this session. We're going to check our Q&A function. You can also drop them in the chat, but have you gotten any questions that we can kind of cover with?
Yes. Is this program applicable to rural areas as well as urban?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, while we know that there are, big priorities here in the metro area, this is absolutely not bound to urban areas. There's a lot of under capacity community forestry programs throughout the state. If you think about tribal lands and some of their programming, many of those in northern Minnesota will be considered rural areas. So please don't read urban forestry and think that your organization will not benefit from partnering with communities who experience injustice.
The mapping tool.
The mapping tool, yeah, thank you. That mapping tool is really, really slick. We basically combined all the different criteria that we were given kind of a green light on being able to use. So those maps are really comprehensive, and we hope will be a really good resource for checking out what's available in your area.
Don't have any other ones right now.
Okay, sounds good. Now's the time, folks, if you want to drop it into chat. Unfortunately, I don't think we can take you off mute, but we hope that you feel very comfortable. If you're not comfortable with during this session, you can absolutely email us. Oh, nice. Hi, Steph. Will this grant program be allowable for tree maintenance or? Okay. Yes, it is. Yep. So our only requirement for this program is the work has to be conducted by a licensed professional, whether it be, there's a number of different certifications. One is the International Society of Arboriculture, or ISA. And then there's another one called TCIA, which is like Tree Care International Association or something like that. So if it's being conducted by a licensed professional, you can absolutely allow that in your budget. What that might look like for an organization is either direct contracting to do that work, or yeah, I think that's how that works best probably, or reimbursement to the homeowner who had that work conducted by a professional. So they'd have to provide documentation, and for many organizations we've heard it's just much more streamlined to kind of administer those activities, but it is allowed.
If you have a question, can you submit it to the host and panelists, please? So I think I might be missing something on here.
Sure. Barring any other questions, we did kind of want to, I feel like this is kind of the goods, right? We wanted to wrap up by giving you an overview of that grant program timeline, because I think you can hear a lot of information like this and be like, how quickly do we have to be putting, oh, here's another one from Steph. How can you preview how funds will be dispersed particularly? I think we might need to like open up that browser. Sorry guys, a little technical difficulties with, yeah. Yeah, we can see it in this, or maybe just move it over to another window.
Quick, and we'll go back to sharing.
Perfect. Stand by. All right, so kind of coming down from the top, see another one from Steph Hinkerson. Can you preview how funds will be dispersed, particularly if it is a reimbursement situation or interval? Yeah, so our funding traditionally follows a reimbursement situation. We do allow up to monthly reimbursement requests. That is how this program will be managed.
Apologies on that. I apologize. I'm messing up our screens here, so. All right.
There's another question from Teresa Floberg. To confirm, a nonprofit has to partner with a local unit of government on an application. No, Teresa. So I don't know where, what organization you're coming from, but there's a couple of different scenarios. If a community-based group holds nonprofit status, they could absolutely apply on their own. We've gotten feedback that some folks who fit that criteria also have a staff of maybe 1 to 2 people and feel like that would just be overwhelming, in which case they've kind of communicated interest in being able to partner with a larger nonprofit, something that hits at a regional or state, heck, even like a national level, to conduct the work, to do some of the managing of the reporting and administration of the funding. So in that regard, you could partner with another nonprofit or a local unit of government. If you think about most scenarios, who actively manages community forest, it's your Parks and Rec, it might be your Public Works Department, you may have a forestry department. So in those scenarios, what we're asking those larger capacity organizations to do is get more connected with community groups to plan, design, put the project into work, maybe even evaluate it. And then, yes, I think your last question, Teresa, we're back up with the timeline. We just wanted to give this to you so that it wasn't overwhelming. We're basically a couple weeks out from that request for application release. And so we wanted to provide a window of time to get acquainted with community groups or offer to even share information from folks that we've been working with over the past couple years who are interested in partnering. This grant will look different than other state programs. Also understanding if you've never applied for state funding, that can be really overwhelming. So we're going to break it into 2 stages. The first, everything will be available day 1, but that first initial inquiry form will be available for the first 6 weeks of the grant program. This will just be like a 1-page. You give us more information about your organization, where you want to conduct work, who you want to involve, the general timeline. That's an opportunity to sit down with Maddie and myself and get up to an hour and a half of technical assistance, looking at the sort of meat potatoes or building blocks of your proposal and be like, yeah, this really fits with the intent of the program. These are maybe some other details you want to shore up before filling out the full request for application. We're hoping this is a really good point in time to connect, and smaller groups can assess yeah, we're really interested in it. This feels like a good use of our time, so that you don't have to invest hours and hours putting together a full application. We're going to be conducting several outreach events. We're targeting not just the metro area, but a few in northern Minnesota and one at least in the southern metro. And we'll have more information on the website as those are dates and times, locations are confirmed. I'm seeing lots of great comments. We're going to come back to those, but I just want to get through the rest of the programming. So you'll notice that the whole grant program is really open for almost 9 weeks. Once it's closed, we're going to go through a grant review process that looks like a committee reviewing applications and selecting projects. Before the end of the year, we're hoping to move into grant agreement negotiations so that by early spring, all of your contracts have been approved for award and you can begin doing that work. We'd like to leave really generous timelines for that, just knowing sometimes our contracting can take a little bit longer than other grants that you may have applied for from other sources. And then the work must be conducted by 2028. So you're looking at a window of about 3 years to conduct the work, a little over. Okay, can we go back to the chat? Because I think I saw.
So we answered Teresa's, but I have to stop sharing this again.
Okay, it keeps like defaulting to the other.
Okay, there's one more. Can the DNR help our nonprofit find a larger partner?
Yes, Steph. So that, yep, and we've talked about this in community too. We're hoping, in addition to the folks we know have expressed interest, that this opportunity will provide more information about those local units of government, those larger nonprofits that are interested, and we are committed to following up on that, not just with general emails, but if you're really having a hard time finding someone, that we would kind of inquire for you with some of our larger networks. Teresa's asking, how long do projects have to be completed? That's the 2028. Oh yeah, yep, I'm doing that elder millennial thing where I can't read fast enough. Yeah, so you do, and you don't have to use that whole time. If you really are like, we just need X amount to conduct these plantings on a year, you can totally apply. There's no minimum to be able to access funding. We are capping awards at $100,000, hoping to distribute these more evenly across the state to more groups. But it can be, any size project, small, medium, or large, long or short. So, yeah. And then if you can click in the second screen, then I can advance. The rest of this just looks like a thank you. I think we're going to drop the grant webpage again.
Yes.
So if you want to visit more, right now, all that website shares is a description of the program, who's eligible, but you'll have to come back on September 9th to see the full application. We're also running another program. Maddie is administering a workforce development program. So we're super busy here, but we're super excited to finally be getting to hit the ground with this federal funding. With that, we're just at about time, but I wanted to thank you for your time. I know it's early on a Monday morning.
One more. Again,
Oh, sure.
This is not limited to ash trees, correct? Any particular?
Correct, Steph. Yep. So Steph is asking, is this limited to working on ash trees? No, it is not. The second half of your question was, I think, a limitation on size of trees. I think if you're looking at, species, not for species, you'll find, much like all of our other grant programs, if you're planting trees, we cannot reimburse for fall and burlap or huge trees, but anything containerized up to, I think, 10 or 20 gallon is permissible. So all of those like nitty gritty details will be available on our website, but this is not ash specific. We know that emerald ash borer is wreaking havoc right now, but those aren't the only trees that folks have a hard time with. There'll probably be a prioritization around public safety, either to people or property. We know from other funding that's gone out, it's kind of like opened up a world of need. And so that would be our request, that it's something that would pose a risk to people or property. Yeah. Depends on how many applications we get. So thank you all so much. Please feel free to reach out. There's our general email address. You can just make sure to name me in the email. But we appreciate you so much. We appreciate the work you do day in and day out, and we're excited to hopefully be able to partner with you in the future. No worries, no worries. See you later, guys. Have a great day.
Stuff's still there. Oh no, okay. Oh wait, I'm sorry. No, there's one more. Will there be a requirement to prove low income status of participants?
Okay. I think at this point, we should definitely follow up. There's another question about proving low income status. That will be the responsibility of the grantee to go through a verification. We've seen a wide spectrum of folks using sort of like a prioritization scale. But I don't think that we've gone so far as to require like a W-2 or that kind of income verification.
Stop recording. So.